Okay, so my name is Summerhayes, and I'm the head of I Communicate at Lewis Girls School. We've been on our curriculum journey now for a few years. We were very fortunate to have a head a number of years ago who had the foresight to sort of grasp the new curriculum with everything she had at a time when really people weren't talking about it very much. So we're effectively now, we've been doing the curriculum for Wales with year 7 for 3 years. We've done 2 years with year 8, and this is the first year with year 9. So I do feel that we are quite established in our journey. We've had an inspection as well, and that went quite well. So I do feel that we've got a few things working for us at the moment. With the reading session this morning, lots of things that I've been thinking about. That sort of line, reading text via the imagination. I think that's, there's such a wide variety of texts that, sorry, just 2 seconds. Sorry, just let somebody come in. There's such a wide variety of texts out there that we can delve into, but there's lots of reasons why we can't actually sort of fire that imagination. I'm finding there's lots of limits to students and them accessing these materials. So one of the challenges we've had is that literature is accessible to all. So reading is accessible to all, because that's a big problem that we've had. We've had quite a lot of success with exam results, and there's a few things on the screen there about how we've done. We've had very good comments on reading from our inspection reports. But I think it's quite, all of that aside, this is what we're faced with at the moment, where we have 56% of students in year 7 now have a reading age of below 10, and that was from our GL data. If you listen to children read, they read quite well. There's the fluency, they've got it. However, they don't understand the layers of meaning. They find comprehension very difficult, and this is something that we found is much more prevalent this year than has been in previous years. It dipped a bit last year, but it's much lower now. So that poses lots of problems for us, and we've been looking at it with the vision of the school and what we're going to do with it. So if you can just bear with me, I'm going to take you through what we are sort of doing to address that. Obviously, text, we're told by the EF that texts need to be, they need to just sort of stretch. They need to be, they need to involve, we need to have lots of modelling, lots of group work. They need to be able to predict and question. But all of these skills are dependent on the fact that they can actually access the curriculum in the first place. So this is something that we've spent quite a lot of time on as a school, not just as a department, to ensure that students are what we call learning fit, and that is our model and our approach. So we implement that at all levels, and our curriculum in English has to align with all the other AOLEs. So I couldn't just do a sort of curriculum just in English. We do it collaboratively, which I'll show you a bit more in a moment. All students have Chromebooks. Again, in lots of schools, we're very fortunate for that, with something called read-write software. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I can sort of give you some information if you need it. But the read-write software allows students to have sort of pink visuals or blue visuals or blow things up. It says words back to them. So it does support readers a lot. We have digital books in all areas, which means that students can work at their own pace. They can sort of take things forward themselves. We don't limit them to lesson by lesson. They can see where the learning goes, and they can work at their own pace. We use Accelerated Reader, which works quite successfully. We've got then the global small group bespoke intervention based on national test data, and it's been crucial this year. Lots more intervention children. The other thing that we've come across, and I apologise if anybody knows all about this, but I've been using these texts, reader-friendly texts from Barrington Stokes, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a moment. We found that they've been invaluable to students, particularly students who are reluctant readers, or students who find reading difficult for a wide variety of reasons. So I'm just going to show you that resource in a second. We also use the RMLI bookstore. We've got a few visual impaired students, and then we're going on the Reading You Consider training, so keep up to date with pedagogy. these are the Barrington Stoke, sort of just a couple of slides here, just telling you about the Barrington Stokes. They are dyslexia friendly font. If I could show you a picture, I would, but they have this sort of cream, they're cheaper than a lot of the tiny little books that you can buy. The text is very easy to read, and I've noticed the students going towards these more out of choice with our in-class libraries and things. They're much more accessible. We've had really positive feedback, and they're building lots of different books here. So again, you know, cream paper, generously spaced, ideal font. In that line, we across the school we use the Lexend actual fonts as well now, so that everybody, when they read them, when they're creating worksheets, and anything on the wall, anything that we have, all is in the Lexend font, so that it's easily accessible to all learners. So there's a few more about Barrington Stoke resources. There's loads of them for you to look at. So as I mentioned earlier, we are, as a school, we've used something called the Learning Fit approach. This is just a little summary of the Learning Fit. You can see it on the presentation later. I won't go into too much detail. But we focus on the principles of the, you know, what you're teaching, why you're teaching, so the what, how, why, where, and basically success criteria at the end, and, you know, how you know you've been successful. And this has been developed quite a lot over the last couple of years, based on the work by Lynn Sharratt. So the head brought it down to us, and to be honest, all pedagogy, all the 4 purposes, all the curriculum tools, everything fits into it quite seamlessly. So it has enabled us to sort of move forward with being far more sort of we work together as different AOLEs quite comfortably, because we all use the same language. So that's just a little bit on that. I won't go into too much because I'm conscious that I'll take too much time. But the what and the why, you know, what you're learning and why you're learning is consistently asked in all classrooms. The students are very familiar with the language, and you know, making sure the modelling and everything from the EAF, that's all part of it as well. That students, you know, are gradually released at the right point. We have PL sessions as well, where we'll go in and see how these elements work across the school in different AOLEs. So you can see there how students are reading and developing across the school. So we use the, and we had a question earlier of how do you sort of assess progression and what does it look like? And I think that's something we've spent a lot of time on recently. We use the language of principles of progression. We had a lot of conversations earlier on about whether we should change the wording for students. We don't do that now. We use the I can statements, and I'll show you an example a bit further on. And then we follow the increase in depth and what does that look like. So they've got models all the way along of how that works. This is our how we apply the Learning Fit model to our department. So you've all seen the learning journeys before, but our learning journey, it constantly evolves. It has changed so much over the last 3 years. We, and like Sam, and I sort of, we got a very different approach here, Sam, but as I said in the breakout room just now, the reason we have to use themes is because the whole school runs on the same areas. They're very loose, and some will do a theme at a slightly different point to another, but we have those sort of base grounded themes where everything stems from. So this is the visual learning journey of what we use now. There's, if you can see on there, you can see lots of little eyes. That's where we have explicit work across the different areas of learning experience. So there's lots of opportunities for that. And the reading skills ladder that we use, the ladder is the same across the whole school. So everybody, when we say compare and contrast, everybody knows what the golden rules are for compare and contrast from year 7 right up to GCSE. And then that is obviously tied into the Learning Fit model. So we've got that consistency across the school then, and children become more and more familiar with the language of reading. We use then the what matter statements in the DOLS. Again, students are very clear on how this works. So the examples of work I'm going to show you in a moment, these are the areas that we pulled out. I do think this is quite challenging. It's sort of trying to almost find the DOLS that fit what you want to do, and if they are very subjective. We tend to move around between the literacy dolls and the LLC dolls. But in this case, I'm going to show you some work we've done with poetry, where we've looked at, and we do purposely look at progression step 4. I find a lot of the progression step 3, as you showed earlier, Emma, quite they can be interpreted in so many different ways, whereas this step 4 is a bit more challenging but clearer. So I tend to use the progression step 4, and then we say whether students are in line with our whole school language, emerging with that step, developing it, or secure, or they're embedded across the different AOLEs. So that's sort of how we sort of bring that together. This is an example then of how that looks on a lesson by lesson basis. So the what and the how form everything we do. So we don't have LOs anymore, or you know, the sort of the language you used to have of you know, the gold, the silver, the bronze, and all the different. We've got lots of different learning objectives. Everybody in the school now sticks to this: what are we learning? What is the point of what we're doing? And the why, with the how and the why. The how is obviously then your skills base. But this is the bit for us that we're finding we're doing a lot more work on. You know, why are students learning about that particular element? Why are we looking at poetry? What is the point of that? And we co-construct these whys then, so they actually see a point of what they're doing. Why we also do the why now and why later, because that then enables them to think, right, this is not just, you know, we're not just sitting in front of, you know, a lot of them struggle with poetry. Now sitting down with poems, we are actually pulling those poems apart, because we see poetry every day, and we go on and discuss all the different benefits there. One of the things that we also do to support that then is we have these little mini roadmaps, which we use all the way through. Again, the same language: the what, the how, the why, and the success. So again, students are very familiar and very successful with that. These are some resources then that we use as part of this poetry unit that we take further then. And I'm sure lots of you have seen these before. Those of you that are older like me, we use tramp and decomposition a lot, because this first unit that we do with Year 9 is all about issues in society. So as part of issues in society, we look at homelessness, we look at attitudes of as the schools, students, society, wider world. And these poems still work really, really well. So we've used those. And then that's an example of the tasks that they do. We use lots of digital tech, which I'm doing a session on in a few months' time. And this is just where they use Jamboard to sort of get all their ideas together collectively, all in the same document. They all can see what everybody else has thought. So they've got their work together, and they're all reading that way then. Co-construction is part of our Learning Fit. And then they've got their success criteria as well. So that's a sort of an example of the model we've used. Another element that I don't know if you've used or not, but something that I found has been absolutely fantastic is the Words That Burn resources by Amnesty. Definitely challenging texts, but they link directly to the work that we do with humanities and the RSE curriculum. So we've been able to sort of really hit this across the school. They've had assemblies on Amnesty International and the work that they do. So we've done a lot with this. And then I've got some examples of some of the work that we've done with these poems. We don't use sort of one poem. We tend to use about 5 or 6 poems at a time, where we have students all working on, you know, in groups. So we can have, for example, one group would work on this one, this Encounter with Freedom. That's just some of their feedback there. Then there's another one with Sally Size Zero, Grace Nichols. There's another one, The First They Came by Nimula, Russian Doll. So it's that giving them that range, that rich opportunity to have lots of different texts that they can relate to other areas of the AOLE. The other thing I want to mention as well then is that we have these SOS slides. So, you know, the sort of, you get the constant questions of how well, or trying to remember what's a simile, what's a metaphor. We've been putting these into everything that they're doing. So the parts of speech, the connections, and then the actual language that they're going to use is in all of their digital books. So they shouldn't have to go looking for any sort of terms, definitions, and everything. They've got it all in front of them. And then finally, I'm going to take you back. Give me a second. When we have our when we talk about the learning fit and the learning journey, we make sure that that actually covers, those elements are developed as we go through year 7, year 8 and year 9. With the year 7 topics, I think we're quite similar. A lot of the schools tackle identity. What we found is, and if this is at all possible for you with schools, the topics are crossing over repeatedly. So there is some fantastic opportunities for us to be able to exploit the learning opportunities for students, and then to be able to form those quite direct and explicit links. For example, Shakespeare, we found out that Shakespeare was being taught by our I Create team, drama and different elements. And we were all sort of doing the origin of Shakespeare and the language, and we were all literally teaching the same thing, whereas now they focus more on the actual physical production of the Shakespeare, whereas we would look more at the language, and then in humanities they do some work on the globe and the sort of social problems in Tudor times. So I think that's my sort of message today really from this, is that we've tried to create a curriculum that is, you know, accessible for all. We've got lots of challenges ahead, I think. I like what Sam said about the, you know, the thinking about the thematics, you know, instead of thematics, looking at the concepts. So that is something definitely I'm looking at my learning journey and thinking I need to go into that and look at how that can work. But we are quite heavily influenced by the rest of the school, because we tend to facilitate a lot in English as well, so that our students can get those sort of quite firm links. So that's my bit. Hopefully that's not eating into too much of the time. So any questions or anything, just pop it in the chat and I can answer. Thank you.